Thank you. And I am in charge of introducing our panel, and I have condensed their bios to be much, much shorter than they should be, just so we can move through this quickly and start this exciting conversation. So directly to my left is Chancellor Brit Kirwan, who's the Chancellor of the University System of Maryland. He's been in the job since 2002 and is actually preparing to retire soon, but not slow down at all from what I gather. Chancellor Kirwan serves on numerous national boards and commissions, including several that focus on Maryland businesses and economic development. To his left, we have Martin Knott, who is an entrepreneur and co-owner of Knott Mechanical, Inc. and Y River Technologies. Mr. Knott is the chairman of the Governor's Workforce Investment Board, which brings together business leaders to develop policies and strategies to strengthen the workforce. He also serves on the Governor's P20 Council. And to his left, we have Dr. Bernard Sadusky, who's the executive director of the Maryland Association of Community Colleges. He was the Queen Anne's County Superintendent from 1994 to 2007, and also served 1 year as interim state superintendent of schools. And he has also been working with the P20 Council. So welcome, thanks for agreeing to do this here today. So we have quite a bit of time to have this conversation, and I want to make sure that no one falls asleep as we're having this. I want this to be lively and exciting, and to do that, I'm hoping that we can make this very much a conversation. I'll be jumping in to ask you guys follow-up questions, and perhaps cutting you off if you happen to go just a little too long. But I also would hope that we get lots and lots of questions from the audience. I want you guys to direct where this conversation goes, what we focus on, what we don't focus on, really make this very meaningful to you. But while you guys are thinking of brilliant questions to ask, I will kick us off with a first question. And maybe we should just start with just kind of a baseline of understanding. Why are we having this panel today? What is the correlation between K-12 education, especially at the earlier grades, higher education, and business? And what sort of things are you guys working on in particular right now? We'll start with you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, and I'm so pleased to have this invitation to be part of this panel with my two good friends and esteemed colleagues. So when you think about higher education in K through 12, let me just say as a general comment that we are joined at the hip in Maryland. I think one of the things I hope the new legislators will come to understand and appreciate is how well the various segments of higher education work together in Maryland. We are truly partners. And I think in Maryland we've come to sort of take that for granted. But believe me, it's not that way in every state. So looking at K through 12 from the higher education perspective, there are two ways in which we are very naturally aligned. The first is we want, and K through 12 wants, the transition from the 12th grade to the 13th grade, or the first year of college, to be as seamless as possible. So we work very closely together to try to align the curricula between the two sectors. And we have a significant common interest in the Common Core. Maybe we'll get into the Common Core a little bit later because it's a very important topic. So that's one way in which this alignment of the passage from high school into college. The second way is, when you think about it, where do the teachers in K through 12 come from? They come from us. So we are in the business of preparing the teachers that teach in the K through 12. So we have to be very closely connected to K through 12 to understand at all levels what is the current curriculum at elementary, the middle school, the high school level, and make certain that we are preparing teachers that are ready to go in and be successful in the K-12 sector. So those are the two areas where we just naturally have partnership.
Great, great.
So Jenna, let me just talk a little bit about community colleges. We obviously have a great interest in making sure that the students who come to us are ready for college work. We've always had dialogue, but now we're having intense dialogue on how we, and I say we, and I think the issue is that we have to understand we have to own these students. And whether they're K-12 students or they're college students, they are students in the state of Maryland. And our economic viability depends upon their success, quite frankly. So what do we have to do? Well, we need to talk about what are those issues of readiness for college? What are those issues of affordability for college? What are those issues of communicating to the general public what it's going to take to be successful in the new economy in the state of Maryland? We all know, or if you read the paper, there's 650,000 jobs vacant in the next 10 years in the state of Maryland. We're either going to import folks to do those jobs, or we are going to do a great job from K-12, seamless transition to community colleges, and to the university system or independent colleges. So are we there yet? And the answer is no. So we need to have those dialogues. What's it going to take? I'm a former superintendent. We've always had dialogue with the community college, but it has not been of the intensity that needs to be. What are the issues why students succeed and not succeed when they get to college? And if we can bridge that gap, if we could take a look at those students who come to us not ready, knowing full well that they have to be meaningful contributors to society, that's a dialogue that's worth having. And that's a dialogue not only worth having, that we quite frankly don't have a choice but to have that. So we have that dialogue. Brit's been a great leader. He's been a great leader for higher education. And we've had a great dialogue with the university system. We are now in the beginning steps of having that dialogue with K-12. What do we do for those students who aren't ready? How do we make them ready? How do we make sure that how we deliver instruction in college meshes with the Common Core, meshes with the new techniques that are out there in the K-12 spectrum? All of those. This is not a one-on-one, and it's real easy to get the two. It's very complex. It takes a lot of expertise, but quite frankly, and Brit hit it on the head, one of the advantages of the state of Maryland is that we've always had, it's small, we can meet, and it's always had the common interest of what our citizens need. There's one of the reasons that we've been successful in this economy. It's a knowledgeable and skilled workforce. Question is, can we continue that? And the answer is we don't have a choice. So we have those. The state legislature 2 years ago passed the Career and College Readiness Act. Some people, oh my God, how are we going to do this? Oh my goodness, this is a lot of work. The answer is it was a positive step in the direction to make sure that all people were focused on all of our students being part of this new economy in the state of Maryland. So we do things. We work with folks at the high school level, transition courses. I'm not college ready. What is it going to take? We're working with K-12 to make sure of that. What does it work? What do we do about communicating to parents about, listen, I know your student doesn't want a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree, but there's life after a 12th grade. There is life that says you could be part of the middle class. This is how you get there. These are the certifications that you will need to be part of this great society. We are driven by business. We got to make sure this guy makes a lot of money. We got to make sure his company makes. We want all of the industries in the state of Maryland to say, hey, it's not a shortage of knowledgeable and skilled people. So to do that, it can't be sole responsibility of the university system. It can't be the sole responsibility of the community college. It's got to be everybody working together. And again, Brit hit right on the head. We're very fortunate to live in this state to have the basis and the organization to have those conversations. So we're in a part of that. We don't want students to begin a program and not finish it. We don't want students, number one reason they drop out of college, they run out of money. $1 trillion debt in this country because of student loan. We got to get rid of that. We got to be smarter on how we do business. We got to limit the amount of time. The only way we do that is to make sure we're the best that we can be, because in my opening or beginning of this remark was, they are our students. We have to own that. We have to own those students, and we have to own the problems that are associated with them. Okay, Jen?
Yeah, Martin, why don't you jump in and tell us a little bit about what do businesses want? And in doing that, maybe you can, I kind of rattled off some group names like P20 and governors' councils and things like that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about stuff that's already going on?
Sure. Well, it's not easy to follow either of these guys. It's one after the other, but then both. But let me jump in here and try and just give the business perspective, because that's what we're focused on, certainly in my company and my companies, making sure that we have well-trained pipelines of employees. That's how I got involved in this work. And then at the Governor's Workforce Investment, where our job at the Governor's Workforce Investment is to make sure that each of the industries that we represent have a voice and or an open dialogue with these institutions to my left and my right, the community colleges and the university system, as well as the K-12 system. And so over the last couple of years, some of the things that we've been doing, one in particular is starting workforce intermediaries. And what a workforce intermediary is a nonprofit, business-driven group that attracts other partners from the education industry, K-12, career and tech ed, community college partners, as well as university partners, and delivers information to those educators on the skills that are needed for the jobs that are open. We've started one in the construction industry. It's called the Maryland Center for Construction Education and Innovation, and it's a little bit of a mouthful, but nonetheless, it is doing great work, because at the end of the day, I do believe that inside of our education system, there is tremendous cooperation and tremendous sort of open dialogue between the varying levels, that being K-12, community college, and then the university system. I believe that exists. I believe, though, that there is a little bit of a disconnect between the business communities and the business communities in different industries and how we deliver the products that we need from the education system, so that there is this seamless transition that you see when you go from the K-12 system into community college and or community college into four-year, that same seamless transition out. And so in 12th grade, if you're not going to go to college or you're not going to go to the community colleges, what are the jobs that we're training you for? What are you prepared to do? Bernie talked about different certifications and those types of things. Being aware of those things, being able to implement those things is very important. Same thing on the university system. We have one of the great university systems in the country. We have an amazing community college system. What are the skills that we're teaching there? Are they applicable to today's economy? Ensuring that dialogue is happening on a regular basis and making progress, identifying areas of need and making progress. So workforce intermediaries, we've started one in one industry. It's a great model. It's working very well. We're making tremendous progress with our partners. It's a partnership that's business driven. And we're going to look to start them in other industries as time goes on, because there is a deficit. Today we have a lot of openings in the construction industry. Today we have a lot of openings in the cybersecurity industry. And we need to make sure that those businesses that have those openings are talking to their education partners, have an open dialogue with them, and are helping everybody understand what the skills that are needed. So these children, kids, young adults are very quickly employable.
Could I just
Yeah,
real quickly,
definitely.
several, I think Martin and you mentioned P20, and we haven't actually told our good friends out here what P20 is, all these acronyms. Well, when a few years ago, Governor O'Malley decided that to facilitate and promote dialogue and discussion and policy on the transition issues from K through 12 to higher education to the workforce, the state would create a P20 council, which has been blessed by the General Assembly. And the governor chairs the P20 council, and then there are 5 co-chairs vice chairs of the council, the Secretary of Dollar, the Secretary of DBED, the State Superintendent of Schools, the Secretary of MHEC, and the Chancellor of the University System of Maryland. But sitting on the council are business leaders, and my good friend Martin sits on the, Bernard Sadusky sits on the council. They're business, folks from business, they're board members from the system, from K-12, the State Board of Education. There's superintendents, there's faculty, there are even students on the council. And so this is a body that comes together to address the big policy issues, ensuring that we have, as I say, these seamless transfers from K through 12 to higher education to the workforce. And I think it's worked extremely well. I see Ms. Foster out there in the audience, and she's been the coordinator for the work of the P20 Council and has done it so very, very well. But that's what the P20 Council is. And it's just one example of how we collaborate in the state around education and workforce issues.
Yeah. What's on each of your wish lists as far as one thing that you'd like to see the state do that would help this collaboration between education and having a trained workforce?
Amply fund education.
I would say my wish list is for business to realize that they have a seat at the table and to take advantage of it and open up those lines of communication.
So Jenna, you know that we deal with the most impoverished population in higher education, community college students. Higher education is not cheap. We're the most affordable sector. That being said, we are very dependent on local funding as well as state funding. The one thing that we have an issue with is if student tuition goes up, we lose students. All right? So just to give you a flavor, community colleges, we have 500,000 students. 150,000 are there to try to get a degree. The other 350,000 are there to get workforce certification. Anytime we have tuition increases, we can tell you there is a direct relationship with losing some students. We fundraise to offset that, but when we have a wish list, is to make sure that education is the value that drives this state. It is by far the driver for the next and future economy. Knowledgeable, skilled workforce needs support. So we're asking for that support. We're asking for that sustained support. So that's on our wish list. We got a long wish list, but that's right on the top.
I want to, if I could.
Yeah, go for it.
I want to just reinforce what Bernie is saying. You know, we have the state developed a goal that by 2025, 55% of the citizens of Maryland, adults of Maryland, would have a 2 or 4 year degree. Now, that 55%, we're right now about 44%. That 55% wasn't pulled out of thin air as some sort of magical number. It is based on the fact that Maryland has a very sophisticated, knowledge-based economy. And we will not have the workforce to fuel that economy, economists tell us, if we don't have that sort of participation rate in higher education among our adult workforce. So Maryland's competitiveness depends upon us driving towards this 55% goal. But I want to make one other point. It's not just about the global competitiveness of the state of Maryland. It's about opportunities for individuals. Let me give you a terrible statistic. In America, if you are in the lowest quartile of income, you have a 9% chance of ever getting a college degree. A 9% chance. Now, when I was graduating from high school back in the 19th century, it was possible to get a very good job with a high school degree. And some people today can find good work with a high school only degree. But we all know that the portal to a good job and a high quality of life is through higher education. We've got to make certain for the benefit of individuals. It's a social equity issue. We can't have the social justice economically in our country unless we open the doors and have much higher proportion of our population coming through college. And here's another fact that we all need to think about. When you look at the 18 to 22-year-old population, what segments of that population are growing? It's underrepresented minorities. That's where the growth in Maryland is. Now, shame on us as a state if we don't make educational opportunities for these people who have, these groups that have not been represented adequately in higher education, and without a college degree will not have the opportunity to move out of their, the economic circumstances so many of them face. So if I have one thing on my wish list is that the General Assembly will step up and reinforce the importance of this 55% goal.
So in a few weeks, Maryland's going to have a new governor, Republican Larry Hogan, who campaigned on promises of cutting government wasted spending, reining in state spending, and eventually, hopefully rolling back some tax increases that have caused a lot of anger and frustration for a lot of Marylanders. What does that change in power and that agenda mean for higher education in Maryland and workforce development in Maryland?
Yeah, so Jenna, let me start because if you really think about it, we're really in sync with the new governor's agenda of business and making sure that business is the driver of this economy. Well, the answer is we've always been that. So the question is, when you put the budget together, budgets, and Brit and I and in private industry, you've put a lot of budgets together. It's a value call. And it's where do you want to put your money for what's in the best interest of the state. We would argue as community colleges, there is no greater investment than the adults, 26 years old average age, that come to us that need retraining. There's no better investment than those students who are going to contribute to their local communities, who are going to have the money to spend in their communities. Yes, business is paramount for us. Matter of fact, we say in community college, we do not want to have an employer leave the state or come to the state and say maybe another state because they don't think that they have the knowledgeable and skilled workforce. We're going to guarantee we could do that. We could meet that, but we need a sound investment. I think it would be foolhardy to think that you can just arbitrarily cut education without saying, what is it exactly? What is the unintended consequence of a different budget? And quite frankly, we haven't heard that. We've had writers write that. We've read that with angst and a lot of anxiety. So it remains to be seen.
Have you met with Larry Hogan?
I've met with some of his people, but not necessarily the governor. We have that request in for our executive presidents to meet with him. We do know it is important, regardless if it's an R or a D, that the welfare of this state depends on some strategic thinking and cooperation. And to do that, I think we can make the case. We can make the case that a sound investment, and quite frankly, we hear these things that, oh, you know, it's bloated, this and that. Folks, we've gone through a recession like everyone else. We've cut back on any expenditures that we felt weren't necessary. We are delivering a product. When you look at community colleges and over the last 4 years, our challenge to meet the governor's growth that Brit alluded to of 55% of our adult population having minimally a two-year degree or social. We have increased our certifications in this state, workforce-ready people, by 47%. We have increased the number of degrees that we've given community colleges in the last 4 years by 38%. We are focused, but quite frankly, we only do that if an administration is our partner in that process, giving us the supports that we need?
Well, sorry, that was long. So I think that from a business perspective, I don't think anything's going to change from a well, let me go back. I don't think anything's going to change from a workforce development perspective, because in order to be a strong state from an economic development perspective, you need to deliver a skilled workforce. And so anything that would get you in a situation where you're not delivering a skilled workforce, I think is dangerous. I agree with these two gentlemen that we need to maintain funding for education. We need to make it better. We need, investment. I can tell you there's career and tech ed classrooms out there that are teaching people for my industry that do not have the classrooms that they need to teach the skills for the new economy. My technicians walk around with laptops every day, and they are driven by a mobile device. And many of them have to have remedial training for that type of work. Buildings, our built environment is becoming dynamic, and is the way that we interact with the built environment. The infusion of information technology into the construction industry is happening at such a rate. Classrooms, agendas, we're in great conversations with the university system right now about making adjustments to the courses that exist so that they meet the demands of the new economy for one specific industry. Every industry has to do that. That is not going to cost less. And so I really do believe it is an investment. And I believe that the new administration hopefully will push a partnership between the education system and the business community that is at another level, and bring everybody to the table so that we can continue to deliver skilled employees and do it better. And I don't think that that's going to cost less.
Jenna, during my tenure as chancellor, when I first came back, an election had just taken place, and a Republican was elected governor of the state. And we were also, believe it or not, having a financial crisis at the time. Some of us look back at that financial crisis with a sense of nostalgia, given what we've been going through since 2008. But budgets had to be cut, et cetera. So we understand their, fiscal responsibility must be a value we all appreciate. But the university system at that time created an initiative which we called effectiveness and efficiency, whereby we scrutinized and scrubbed every process, administrative, academic, looking for ways in which we could use technology, consolidate services, use economy of scale in purchasing, et cetera. And this initiative continues to this day. We have taken out of our base budget between when we started this in 2004 to today, something like $400 million out of our base budget expenditures through the Effectiveness and Efficiency Initiative. And I want to say that Governor Ehrlich, when we rolled up and gave him our Effectiveness and Efficiency Initiative, called a press conference. And at that press conference, he said, "I now believe $1 spent on the university system of Maryland produces $1 worth of value for the citizens of the state." And we have continued that E&E effort. So I think the new administration will find that, look, we may have to all tighten our belts just because of the nature of the times, but we'll find that the system is very cost conscious. In fact, everybody talks about tuition going up, 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 up. Because of our effectiveness and efficiency, and because of the support of the legislature and the governor, would you believe that since 2008, tuition in the state of Maryland has gone up cumulatively 12 percentage points? Now, a lot of states it's 12% a year. We're talking about 12% since 2008. So that's a remarkable record, because the state has appreciated the fact that we are such cost-conscious stewards of our dollars. One last comment about Governor Hogan. You know, he's very pro-business. He wants to have a strong economy, and you can have a strong economy. You know, there's 18,000 jobs open in cybersecurity right now in the state of Maryland. So we need to fill those positions. Well, you can't fill those positions if you don't have a higher education system or education system starting through K through 12 that can produce the quality of workforce and in the volume that we need to just address the issues in cybersecurity. I've heard Governor-elect Hogan speak on a number of occasions, and I've heard him comment about how proud he is of the education system we have in the state, in particular this University System of Maryland. So I truly anticipate that we will have a very strong working relationship with him, because look, it's in everybody's interest for us to have the strongest possible education system. It's in to make this a thriving, prosperous state, as it has been.
Got it. Well, lucky for me, there's a pile of questions here, so I won't have to think of them myself. And they're really fantastic questions, so I'm excited to jump into these. This first one might be best for Martin. One of the members of our audience asks, I'm always looking to local businesses for support in one way or another in my position as a work-based learning coordinator. Are there any buzzwords or phrases that she could use to increase my success rate as I continue to reach out?
Sure. So I think the most important one is probably partnership. And I believe that, you know, coordinators need to reach out to local businesses and talk about partnerships and talk about alignment and see what programs are there locally that can support those businesses, whether it be in the community college, four-year, wherever it might be. I think the other is money. There's an enormous amount of money being paid in our economy for people that are finding people jobs. The owner of the Ravens has a $1 billion franchise because he helps people find jobs. And so I myself oftentimes pay recruiters to help find technicians. If I had a workforce coordinator or an education coordinator or a pipeline of those employees that I knew had the skills and the certifications that I needed as an employer, I would go directly to them. And so I think that as you're out there trying to coordinate these efforts to put people to work and or whatever it may be at the K through 12, I think that helping businesses save money by delivering skilled employees, those talking in that regard, I think will help develop a lot of partnerships.
How about internships, especially when it comes to high school students? I know there's some boards of education that are leery of setting up arrangements like that.
Personally, I think, again, as we develop and open up channels of communication between all of the different segments in the education system and the business community, that is going to spawn these relationships. They are absolutely needed. Most businesses would love to get a look at a potential employee in advance of their first interview. They would love to see someone work and develop skills in their workplace. That makes them more valuable day one. And I think that that's a great way to also encourage dialogue between, again, the education system that's delivering these great students and the business community. And so internships, externships, whatever we can be doing to foster those types of initiatives, I think that we're doing well by our students and we're doing well by our business community, and education wins in that regard.
Jenna, I had the privilege of chairing a STEM task force for Governor O'Malley, co-chaired with June Streckfus, who is head of the Maryland Business Roundtable. And one of the, we had a great committee that worked on this, and we did lots of surveying and heard from people. And one of the top recommendations in our report is the need to expand the number of internships, for sure in higher education, but also there was a lot of talk about the value of internships in the K through 12 sector as well. What we have found, because there is an internship program at most of our institutions, what we have found are two things. First of all, it provides a very strong academic motivation for the students. They go into the workforce, they see the skills that are needed in the job, they see that the education is leading them to some wonderful opportunities, so it sort of increases their motivation. But secondly, it gives them a chance to see, is this really the line of work I want to be in? And thirdly, as Martin just said, it gives companies a chance to get a sort of a quick look at early look at potential employees. So I think internships, the more we can expand those in the state, I think the better off it is for everyone.
Absolutely. And there are great examples even in the high school level in career and tech ed where internships are happening. We have young men working at our company and they go to vocational school, career and tech ed. During the day, they come to work for a couple hours. That's great. Nobody goes out and buys a car without driving it. And so students are the same way. They want to try careers out. They want to see what it's like, understand sort of what the workplace environment's like. I don't think employers are any different. And I'm a huge proponent of advancing that as much as possible.
So school systems across Maryland, this is another great audience question. School systems across Maryland are experiencing a shortage of STEM teachers, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, and CTE, which is career technology education, like computer science, health, agriculture, teachers. What are 2- and 4-year colleges doing to help get more of these specialized teachers into their classrooms?
So let me just tell you, during the last legislature, the university system and community colleges were very fortunate with the eye on affordability and promoting STEM fields to have a scholarship program passed where if a student would pursue a STEM degree at the community college and so forth and complete there, they would automatically have a $2,000 a year scholarship for the next couple of years when they went to the 4-year institution. And that was purposeful for one reason, because we know that students have the ability to do that. We know that students need the practical experience. We have changed how we've done things at the community college, delivered those instructions in smaller groups, in cohort groups, to make sure that because one of the problems we do have with STEM students is they have a tendency, when it gets tough, they may want to walk away. We absolutely have tried to provide those supports to make sure they stayed focused on that. And then money incentivizes folks and incentivizes students to keep them on track, to make sure that they can continue that. We've tried to provide them some financial dollars to pursue it at the next level. That being said, that is one of the areas where K-12, the dialogue about what is a STEM field, what is required, and making sure that you have those basic skills, that's the conversation we're having, not only with completion and affordability, but also for those folks in STEM, STEM, basically to make sure that they continue on the course. Because quite frankly, it's challenging. And so the question is, do our students have the ability? The answer is yes. But when the tough gets going, we got to be there to give them the supports to do that. We've tried to do that with intrusive counseling. We try to do that with a lot of different redesigns at the community college to make sure that nothing breeds success like success. They have that success feeling and that experience when they leave us. Brit, that goes to you.
Well, Jenna, this is a huge problem in not just in Maryland, in our society. And part of the issue is that if students graduate with a STEM degree and are certified to teach, there are very attractive, higher paying jobs outside of teaching available to these individuals. So there's you know, it's in part an economic challenge. So you know, I think somehow or another, our nation needs to figure out how we can pay teachers who are particularly in high demand areas where there is competition outside of education. They have to. I think there has to be some better pay. So, I mean, that's one issue. However, we recognize that we've got to do everything we can to get as many qualified STEM teachers in the classroom as we can. So we established a goal a few years ago in the system to triple the number of STEM teachers that we put into the schools. And Towson and University of Maryland College Park have just won major awards from a foundation to implement a program called You Teach, which was started at the University of Texas. But in any case, these programs have been implemented at College Park and at Towson and intended to recruit STEM majors and give them the opportunity while they're getting a STEM major to get certified to teach. The program's been proven to be very successful in Texas and a few other states, so I think it's going to be a big boost to our efforts here in Maryland. But then we got UMBC that doesn't have a school of that is doing alternative certification and doing a magnificent job. So we're thinking about, as a system, all sorts of different strategies to ramp up this number. But our goal is, as I say, to triple the number of STEM teachers we're putting into the classrooms in Maryland, and it's a very laudable and important goal to achieve.
This isn't the first time, and I'm going to speak for the K-12 sector, that we've been through this. I think we need to take a look at some of our successes in the past. And I think the challenge is not to say, higher ed, are you going to put more mathematics teachers out there? You're going to put more science teachers out there? I think we need to look at our own ranks and say, do we have folks that have a willingness and aptitude to do that and are willing to go back at our expense as an employer to get that training? We know they're successful in the classroom. And you know, it doesn't take a lot of courses to get to that next level. That should be our challenge as an employer, as K-12 employers. Take a look at what we have, see how we could pay for those master's degrees in the areas that we want, and then put them on a pay scale. I think the union will certainly agree with that. People getting paid more money. And the issue is we have talented teachers that are willing to take that challenge if we give them the right financial support.
Well, I think equally as important on the STEM side from a teacher perspective is the students, and getting students to really engage and embrace those different types of things: science, technology, engineering, and math. And at the PETA 20 Council, we recently convened the PETA 20 Arts Council. And the PETA 20 Arts Council came back and spoke. I sat on that and went through that and spoke to how are we utilizing arts education to stimulate children into going into these fields by building, great behaviors early on and building on sort of using this left side, right side brain, and really helping them to breed an imagination that will allow them to go and get into these fields and do it in a robust way. And so that report was issued, I believe, in September. And the arts integration, the acceleration of arts integration, I think is critical to STEM. I think it's critical to the new economy, and getting children to think left brain, right brain, because that's what we need today.
Got it. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but college completion rates for a lot of students takes a lot longer than the traditional 2 years to get an associate degree and the traditional 4 years to get a bachelor's. So what are things that you guys are doing not only to get students out the door in 2 or 4 years, but to maybe also speed that up and get them out even sooner than that.
So, Britt, I'll start and then you could go with it. One of the issues we have is obviously, number one, affordability. And if a student spends their time and money in a developmental course when they're in community college, the chances are that, number one, they run out of money. Number two, they get discouraged because they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So we have worked especially hard with the university system to revise our courses, take a look at why those students don't complete more quickly. The number one driver of that seems to be mathematics competency. So when we receive students from high school, the question is, do they all have to have the same mathematics competency to be successful in a different career path? That's an effort being led by all the sectors, but being championed by Chancellor Kirwan here, because we feel at the college level that we cannot be the roadblock for those students to be in developmental education. Now, when we look at the students, there is going to be a body of students who don't have either the math or the literacy skills for the credit-bearing course at college. So we need to go to the source, and that's exactly what we've done. We've gone to the K-12 sector and say, look, we could give you data, but let's together design something that you could deliver, whether our people deliver it, whether you people deliver it, at the high school level, that gives these students an opportunity to be ready for that next level, which is credit-bearing. So we have done a number of things, course redesign. We've talked about how we've delivered classrooms. Learners today, digitally, right? We can't have folks delivering instruction like they did 20 years ago. In a former life, it was one of the things I did in K-12 when I went to the State Department level, is deal with students who couldn't pass the high-stakes test for graduation. And when you talk with those students, they certainly had the ability to be able to pass the test. So we developed a bridge program where they demonstrated the knowledge. And the students, overwhelmingly, would then get their high school diploma. So in conversation with all of them, and I spoke to hundreds of them, he said, well, we never had instruction like this. And for most part, it was simulations, and it was project-based kind of things. So we need to be smarter about how people, especially those people who don't learn like maybe the general population, how that instruction is delivered to them. We have to have a practical approach to that. So we are doing that in the state of Maryland. At the community college, we look at course redesign, how we deliver instruction. We're interested in Khan Academy. Matter of fact, we're interested in anything that's going to make our folks more successful. One of the drivers for us is to make sure that students get out of developmental education and credit bearing as quickly as possible. I alluded to a bill that was passed by this legislature a couple of years ago that says that as soon as that student is finished with a developmental course, go right into credit bearing. Don't take a year and a half and then all of a sudden they lost that knowledge base, especially in that mathematics area. We have also looked intensively at making cohorts of students, because we know there's research coming out of California that if you can group students, get them into a learning community, give them the kind of supports and counseling and advising, those students will finish. So we are absolutely focused on making sure that we minimize the time. One of the things that you do, one of the things that you would say, well, 2 years, you ought to finish in 2 years. 61% of our students in community colleges work. They work part-time. That's a difficult task, folks. So we try to balance that. We want to minimize that. We're seeing growth, but we have work to be done. But it is laser focused on higher education, and hopefully one day, we get rid of this barrier called developmental education.
Well, I agree with the things that Bernie said, but let me, I'm very proud, you talked about time to degree. I'm very proud of the fact that we've seen a steady decrease in time to degree in the University System of Maryland. When I became chancellor in 2002, the average time to degree was about 5 years for a entering first-time full-time freshman. Today, it's 4.2 years, so it's just barely over 4 years. That's the average time to a degree for one of our students. One of the things we've done really well with the community colleges is align the curricula so that when a student leaves the community colleges with an associate arts degree, they can come into one of our institutions as an upper class students. Now, it's not perfect yet, but we have really worked hard to make this alignment very tight, and we started with areas where there is great demands in the workforce. So we started with teacher education. We added nursing. We've added engineering. And so we can guarantee a student, if they get an AA degree in one of these disciplines, they can come to any of our institutions and they will not have to take any lower division courses. I'm very proud of the fact that I'm a great believer in the community colleges. I'm very proud of the fact that this past fall, we had as many community college students entering our institutions as we did first-time freshmen. Think about that. As many community college students coming to us as we had first-time freshmen. And they graduate, see, we talk about 6-year graduation rates. That's not our construct. That's the federal government. That's how they measure graduation. So we're bound by what the federal government, that's how we have to report. So, but I'm very proud of the fact that Bernie and his colleagues trained these students so well that if a student comes with an AA degree, they graduate in 4 more years. Now, think about that. 2 + 4 is 6. As a first-time freshman coming to our system does in 6 years. In other words, the graduation rate for community college transfers coming in with an AA degree is the same as in 6 years as it is for a first-time freshman. So I think we have a great thing. There's no doubt that the community college is already an important arrow in our quiver in terms of opening access to higher education and assuring that we're serving larger and larger number of students in an affordable way.
Got it. How about students or young people in the 18 to 25 range who've not done well in school, who do not have a college degree, who might barely have a high school diploma or a GED? What alternatives to college are out there? And should there be more options along those lines?
Well, okay, so we are open access institutions. So if you have a GED or a high school diploma, you are admitted to a community college. What we want to make sure is we understand what's available. We need to make sure that student knows what's available. We also make sure that that student understands there's life without a degree. And there are certifications relative to aptitudes and some general knowledge that can serve that student well. Those students, at one time when Brit talked about, were the ones who came out of high school went to Bethlehem Steel. The jobs aren't there. They need to come to us. They need to understand the diversity. Last year, we graduated 57,000 people in this state with one type of certification or another. So the list, it's like, well, what are they? Well, the list is like 5 pages in a booklet that we put out about jobs that folks don't even understand that are out there today, that are all employable upon completion of certification. Those are the students that we can't lose, quite frankly, because as you know, even with a high school education, the forecast is the only things that you qualify for are the food industry, general labor, and if you have a good personality, you can probably sell something. Other than that, there aren't any jobs you're going to qualify for. So So we've got to give them that post-secondary training, regardless of what and why they were successful or not successful coming out of high school. I mean, that's why community colleges are there. They serve their community. They serve the regional need and the state need for all segments of the population. They don't need to go have a life's lesson in return. We are there for them. And we haven't, and quite frankly, we have not done a good job of getting that message out to society in general. But there are opportunities existing for all adults.
Sure. Well, I'll make a run at this one. I think there are a lot of jobs out there that we could be up training these individuals into very quickly. And again, it goes back to the connection between the business community where the jobs are open and the education system where the training opportunities may or may not exist. And we're either identifying those opportunities and building pathways for these different people that are out there for multiple sectors, whether it be manufacturing, distribution, service sector, construction industry. There are many industries that need those people with those skills and that can give a little bit of an up training, and very quickly now they possess skills and certifications that are valuable to employers. Opening up the dialogue between employers and the education system, understanding the certifications that are out there, talking about 57,000 certifications with these people, making sure that when that person goes to take that class, that the information that they are going to consume and they are going to learn is something that's a building block towards a job. And so there are great opportunities for that. I think that there are many fronts happening between the workforce system and the community colleges, and this is our WIA workforce system throughout the state. There are many efforts to find these people that are sort of out there bumping into each other and get them into a pathway that puts them into a job.
We just briefly touched on Common Core earlier, and especially if there are any lawmakers in the audience, what would you like to see happen with Common Core in Maryland, and what, especially when it comes to legislators who each session Common Core comes up in a variety of ways, what would you like them to know about this?
Well, maybe we ought to first say what the Common Core is.
Sure.
Yes.
I'll let you take that one.
Okay, so the Common Core was an effort to align the high school curriculum with the exit requirements in high school with the entrance requirements in college, not in Maryland, but nationally. And it was an idea that was, at the time it was created, was universally embraced. I say that because what happened was the National Governors Association unanimously embraced the development of the Common Core as, I say unanimously, I think 47 or 48 states agreed that we should develop a curriculum that was better aligned high school and college. So the chief state school officers, those are the superintendents in all the states, came together with the National Governors Association to work on the Common Core. So faculty from universities joined teachers from the K-12 sector to develop alignment between language arts and mathematics. And the idea was that other disciplines will be added in the future. And agreement was reached. It was a miracle. The university faculty from across the country agreed with the K-12 teachers that these standards, the Common Core standards in language arts and math, did the right alignment between high school and college. And then the expectation was that these standards would then be so-called back-mapped from the 12th grade down to the 11th grade. If you're going to have to know this in the 12th grade, then you got to know this in the 11th grade, et cetera, et cetera. So that work is going on in the K through 12 sector. Then there was an agreement that there would be some means of assessing that students had actually met the standards of Common Core, and if they had, then higher education would accept these students and not require any remedial work. It's what we should be doing in our country. Unfortunately, this has become, not so much in Maryland, I hope, but across the country, a political hot potato. And I think people have tried to imply or infer that this is the federal government taking over K through 12 education. Nothing could be further from the truth. The federal government was not involved. They were glad it was happening, but they weren't involved in the creation of the Common Core. It was the chief state school officers and the National Governors Association. So we need, as a state, to get behind the Common Core. I mean, it is our last best hope to make this alignment work and get out of this graveyard of having students come from high school into college and have to take remedial work. This is how you eliminate remedial work, by adopting and embracing the Common Core. Maryland has done a great job with this because we have such a strong partnership between the state superintendent and the state school board and higher education. We have worked hand in glove on the Common Core issues and on the assessment issues. And I think Maryland is really a poster child for doing this right. But quite frankly, Common Core is threatened for political reasons across the country. And if it fails in other states, it will be, in my opinion, a travesty for our nation. But right now, we are in a pretty good place with Common Core in Maryland.
I would just say that part of the problem, and I don't want to absolve or blame the federal government, but I don't think, I feel that on a national level, it was probably one of the most miscommunicated positive efforts in education. And we have fought that battle with increasing challenges for the last few years. Maryland, as long as we've provided teachers the training and the time to work with the curriculum and learn how to deliver that, I think it'll be a smooth transition when we get to that ultimate place where everybody feels it's just commonplace. But as a nation, we really didn't do a good job of communicating why we have to do this. What was the option if we didn't do this? Everybody talks about increasing rigor, raising the stakes. Yeah, because the world's changed. Then let's make that case. And I'm not sure we made that case nationally. And obviously we're paying the price for it on a national level.
This is another question from our audience. Maryland is blessed with excellent community colleges, yet some school systems do not promote them for the wide variety of students that might benefit. Some of the examples are, short-term credit or non-credit programs or transfer programs, taking programs close to home and then gradually transitioning to colleges, to a four-year college. Some school systems seem far more concerned with pushing AP, IB courses in four-year schools that help them in rankings than in promoting community colleges that might be better for the students. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. And there is a variability in the state, quite frankly, of the relationship in the number of students who take some type of early college experience. So let's explain what that means. We have programs in this state where if a student starts in a middle college, the shining example is Prince George's County, where you have 100 students in each grade level, that when they graduate from high school, they will also earn their associate's degree. We have those programs starting at College Park through the Prince George's County school system. Washington County, a number of folks have them. We've always had dual enrollment to some degree. What we say is we want to make sure that students who are ready for that experience have options. AP is a viable option. But so is dual enrollment college credit courses. Now, there is no question that since the Career and College Readiness Act passed 2 years ago, we have upped, because I've just looked at the numbers, we are 1,000 students up now taking college courses. So we've gone from 8,000 students a year, usually juniors and seniors, to 9,000. We think we ought to be about 12,000. Those credits transfer. Those are, for most part, the most affordable credit that parents could get. Now, at the heart of the matter, each of the school systems have a school performance index. And one of the barriers that we see is that the school performance index does not credit college courses for part of that index. That's a self-imposed barrier. I can tell you that the state superintendent is absolutely aware of it. I can tell you that the superintendents around the state support dual enrollment in college credits, and that's something we're going to have to work with the federal government to get rid of. So how did this happen? Well, there was a ranking system, and we were number one, and one of the many categories that you got ranked for was the number of students and the number of successful students taking AP courses. So if I'm sitting there making the calculation, I might have had a tendency until recently to understand that we want to push this. There's nothing wrong with AP. It's not a crack on AP. But the valuable experience of a college course is every bit as valuable as the AP course. That is something that each school system has to, and each Board of Education has to decide. What's important is that you offer the opportunity for that next level of rigor to all students. Now let it be the parent's choice to say this or that or whatever. So I think that mindset is changing. I personally would like to see it change dramatically. It is a great start on college. And as you well know, because of the discounts that community colleges are offering while students in high school, it is by far the most affordable college credit that you can get when you're in high school. So we've seen progress. I've seen the numbers grow. We hope that we continue that. What we are also saying is that AP doesn't always transfer, but college credit transfers. Brit's folks, university system is going to take it. We take it. It counts to their degree. So those are decisions a parent's going to have to make, a student's going to have to make. As long as they're informed making that decision, both are great options, and it's great because it's opportunity for students. But again, I think if you ask that question a year from now, maybe we get, I think the numbers are even higher. So we've had 1 year to show how effective the dual enrollment has been. We've picked up 1,000 students in that whole process. Let's ask the question in a couple years from now, see what happens.
Here's another question. Chancellor, I think this one's for you. The University of Maryland has partnerships with community schools in Baltimore City. Can you share a little bit about about the benefits for both, why you guys do that, the benefits for both the university and for the schools that are partnered with?
You mean, just to be sure I understand the question, the partnership is with K-12 schools in Baltimore?
I think so.
Well, I mean, we actually have partnerships with our institutions, have partnerships with the schools across the state. I mean, one of the things I think we've done very successfully is get some federal grants, tens of millions of dollars of grants to in partnerships between our universities and local school districts to work on professional development for teachers. So we've had a grant that has involved Bowie State, College Park, and the Prince George's County Schools, very significant grant, well over $4 or $5 million. And it's a grant that enables us to provide enrichment experiences for teachers, particularly in the STEM disciplines. We have a similar grant in operation with the Baltimore City schools, and we've had one in Montgomery County. And it's just an example of our sense of the importance, our responsibility really, to work with the schools to ensure that the teachers have the knowledge and expertise in the disciplines that they're teaching today to be highly effective classroom teachers. So, this is very much, we see central to our mission to be a good and faithful partner with the local school districts. And one of the great things about the system is we have institutions all the way from Frostburg State in the west to Salisbury and University of Maryland Eastern Shore in the east. And so we have these kinds of partnerships all across the state, and we think they're very valuable to the local school districts.
Martin, here's a question for you. When you're meeting with fellow business leaders, what are some of the things that you hear most often that they want out of new workers? I know we talked a little bit earlier about the shortage of workers in construction and cyber, but expand on that a little bit more. What sort of skills are they looking for, or what should kids these days be learning?
Wow. I think what employers are looking for are skills that are applicable to their jobs, directly applicable. I think certifications. The information technology world does an amazing job of equating certifications to jobs and certifications to pay. And if you dive into that world, if you're a young student, you want to dive into that world, they've done a really nice job of saying if you do these things at these different levels, whether it be high school or at the community college level, Anne Arundel County does a great job with that, or the university system, these skills and certifications equal this pay. And so you can exit your education program, go out, get a job, stay in that job for a certain amount of time, but then go back in and get the skills and certifications that are needed. And I think that's really, at the end of the day, that's what we need in order to be able to grow businesses in the state of Maryland. You need a pipeline of employees that have the necessary skills that are applicable to the various jobs out there. And hopefully, they're homegrown. We do a lot of importing in Maryland, especially in the construction industry. I know in the education industry, we do a lot of importing. And I think opening up those lines of communications and ensuring that we understand the numbers that we're looking for and the numbers that we need. In the construction industry, the average age of the craft worker is 47 years old now. And it's not like kids are lining up to get into these CTE classes. And so, but if we can show them a pathway, if we can show them the skills that are necessary and the education system can deliver those skills, you add in some internships and things along the way, and I think the business community will be very happy. We won't have these deficits that we have today. We won't have the importing that we have today. Importing costs money. Eventually, they go home to Betty Sue and Grandmom's apple pie, wherever that is. That happens all too often, and that costs us a lot of money in the business community. So I think, again, we're lucky that we have willing partners in that mission. I really feel like, as chair of the Governor's Workforce Investment Board, our partner organizations, very much like that mirror almost the P220 Council, everybody gets it. And everybody is trying to move the bar and raise the bar to be sure that the lines of communication are open so that we can get these skills to these children and young adults and get them to work. 18,000, we wouldn't be having conversations about cuts if 18,000 more people were working today in the cyber. We would not have a $100 million, $160 million deficit in our state if 18,000 more people were working. Because if 18,000 more people are working, it's less of a burden on the system, but it also creates the revenue and the tax revenue, and that bleeds out into the retail industry, into the hospitality industry, into the many other industries. And so, again, skills alignment, pathways, jobs, that's the future for our economy. That's what we need. And happy to have great partners in that effort.
Just one footnote to that, Jenna, and Martin is absolutely right. We in higher education have to be certain that we are providing our graduates with the skills to get that job. But we also have to educate these students with a well-rounded education for life, because they're not going to have that one job, and the skills needed in that job today are going to change over time. And so we have both this sort of sense of the immediate to give them the skills they need to now, but that we have to teach them to think and have the mental capacity and knowledge and to know how to learn so that they can be educated for life.
Great. I think I'm running out of time here. I see the hook coming over. Thank you guys all for the questions and for the panelists today. I found this, when I'm learning stuff, I know that's always a good sign. So thank you.
Thank you. Please thank our panel. Okay, so that wraps up our forum. But before you leave, a couple of things, and then I want to introduce one more person. First, we talked a lot about evaluations throughout the day today. There's one more evaluation, which is the evaluation forum of this policy forum. We got a lot of feedback throughout the day. Want to make sure we get some feedback from you as it relates to trying to do something like this again in the future. Second, please take advantage of the audio files and video files that will be available from this forum on the MSEA website at www.marylandeducators.org. All the forum sessions will be posted there, certainly by the end of the day today. Finally, just some thank yous. Throughout the day, had an opportunity to thank people who were helping, but never got to shout out Bern and the AV crew who were helpful in making sure all of us were mic'd for sound and available to be seen and heard. And so thank you to you guys for the support.